So we're here at the Echoes of Creation Conference. What is it that made you say yes to participating in a conference with young creatives?
I've always loved this topic. It's my favorite topic, to be honest with you. Even though I've pastored and I've been involved in the Christian world, I came from a secular world. I was a hardcore atheist, and I always really revered the excellence and the brilliance of the craftsmanship of creatives within the secular world. But for me, it was really important that we actually started to build a bridge between some of the talent and the craft between the secular world and making sure that we can actually pour into the Christian, because we're full of talent, but we don't really give platforms or places really to give them a chance to actually give the risk and fighting for the courage to be able to try out new things. And we are seeing in the industry now, more than ever before, some phenomenal pieces of work finally getting its sort of limelight into the mainstream, and I think we've got a beautiful message to say, and I think we need a bit more light.
You being a pastor and an author yourself, what advice would you give to a young writer who is thinking, I've got a book inside me, but I don't even know where to start?
Yeah, as an author, when you start doing book signings, people come up to you and go, oh, I've got a book in you, or you wrote the book that I wanted to write, those kind of things. And so after I apologise, I then say, you know what would be really interesting for us all to start with? And as I was a journalist before I started doing books, so the gift of asking the right questions and being curious, I think, was probably one of the most powerful tools that helped me. And sometimes we can get apathetic, either maybe in our fear, maybe we've disqualified ourselves because we think the story's already been done. But you could talk about the same subject from 50,000 different angles and it's still a new story. So I think the gift of curiosity, really piercing into the questions of people's lives, biopics, documentaries, all those things where we're learning about lives, people's stories, I think are a great place to start.
Speaking of curiosity and asking the right questions, that inspired your latest book.
I decided, well, it actually started with, again, curiosity. About 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I gave my mother an empty book, leather bound, with her name engraved into it. And I said, Mum, I want you to write all the stories about your childhood, principles of your life, things that have got you through tough times. And I felt like we were going through, it seems that every single young generation berates and bemoans the older generation. And we've lost sometimes the opportunity of wisdom from them learning and living life, even though we might think that they're backdated or they're falling behind in progressive times. I think actually we need to be learning from both their mistakes as well as their great learnings. And so when Mum handed me back this book, I was like, my gosh, I thought I knew my mum inside out, but I know just the surface level of my mother, my own mother. And so what it created then was, why don't we give this book a prompted journal that basically hands questions over, deep questions, journalistic questions that are like, I'm not interested in what your favorite thing is for breakfast. I want to know, what was your darkest hour of your life and how did you get through it? And so it gives us the principles to live by, and then that becomes our legacy. So we hand the book over to someone that inspires us. It doesn't have to be a parent, it can be a grandparent, it can be a spiritual mentor, a teacher, a coach. Give it to them for 6 months, a year, and then they give it back to you with the answers, and you hold their legacy as a letter to you. And hopefully their pain is our gain in some way. So that's why I did it. I thought I gained so much from my mother learning and listening to her wisdom, that I just thought, oh, we can just make this into a book. It's the easiest book I've ever written, but I've loved hearing the stories from it. It's lovely to make the reader the writer for a change.
Now, have you answered the questions yourself?
No. Too terrified to answer my own questions. It was actually a test run on probably about 50 people that were over the age of 70. And there was one guy that said, you know, I don't know whether I want to write about the affairs I had when I was younger. I went, I totally get that. But wouldn't it be interesting for younger folk to learn why you had them? What was the revelation or the restoration that you needed to stop doing that?